When I first held Daniel in my arms, he was only a few hours old. His mother, my younger sister Rachel, had just passed away from complications during childbirth, and there was no father listed on the birth certificate. She had been struggling with so much in her life, and she had always said if anything ever happened to her, she wanted me to take care of her child. So I did. I was 27 at the time, single, and working as a freelance writer. I wasn't ready to be a mother, but I became one overnight. Raising Daniel was the hardest and most beautiful thing I'd ever done. I gave him everything I had: time, love, guidance, and safety. I enrolled him in preschool, held him during every illness, clapped for every school play, and kissed every scraped knee. I was never anything but mom to him. I didn't hide the fact that Rachel was his biological mother, but to him, I was the one who had always been there. He called me mom because that's what I was. The years passed quickly. Daniel grew up into a kind, smart, thoughtful young man. By the time he was in high school, people would comment on how mature he was for his age. I was proud of him every single day. When he got accepted into college with a scholarship for his writing, I felt like all the sacrifices I had made were worth it. We stayed close even after he moved into the dorms. He'd call every few days, sometimes just to talk about his classes or a girl he liked. I never thought anything would change between us. But life has a way of throwing curveballs you never expect. It started when he came home for summer break after his sophomore year. He was 20 then, tall, broad-shouldered, and no longer the little boy I once rocked to sleep. I noticed how much he had changed. His voice was deeper, his eyes more intense. There was a quiet confidence in him that hadn't been there before. One evening we were sitting on the back porch, sipping iced tea and watching the sunset. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, and everything felt peaceful. He turned to me suddenly and said, "Mom, can I ask you something kind of serious?" Smiled. "Of course. You can always talk to me." He hesitated, looking down at his hands. "Do you ever regret it? Raising me? Giving up your life?" Question struck me. I reached for his hand. "Never. Not once. You gave my life meaning, Daniel. I wouldn't trade any of it for the world." He looked relieved, but then his expression changed. Something flickered in his eyes that I couldn't quite place. "Sometimes I wonder what things would have been like if you were. I don't know. Not just my mom." I blinked. "What do you mean?" He gave a nervous laugh, shook his head. "Forget it. It's stupid." But I didn't forget it. That moment haunted me. It wasn't the words exactly, but the way he had looked at me. Like he was seeing me differently. Like he wasn't just my son anymore. As the summer went on, I started noticing little things. The way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't watching. How he'd sit a little too close on the couch. The way his hand would linger when he touched my shoulder or brushed past me in the kitchen. I kept telling myself it was just in my head, that I was overthinking everything. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. One night we were watching an old movie in the living room. It was late, and the lights were dim. I felt his eyes on me more than on the screen. I turned to say something, but before I could, he reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. My heart skipped. "You're so beautiful," he said softly. Froze. "Daniel. I know I shouldn't say that," he continued, his voice trembling. "But it's true. You've always been everything to me. And lately, I've been feeling things I don't understand." I stood up quickly, my heart racing. "Daniel, stop. You don't mean that." He stood too, stepping toward me. "I do. I know it's wrong. I know how it sounds. But I can't help how I feel. You raised me, yes, but I've grown up. I'm not a child anymore. And I see you, not just as my mom, but as the woman who gave me everything, who sacrificed everything. I love you." I was shaking. "You're confused. This isn't love. It's gratitude, admiration, maybe even attachment. But it's not the kind of love you think it is." His voice cracked. "How do you know?" "Because I'm your mother, Daniel. I raised you. That's a bond that can't be undone." He didn't say anything after that. He just looked at me with heartbreak in his eyes and went to his room. The days that followed were awkward. He avoided me and I let him. I needed space too. I cried in private, wondering where I had gone wrong. Wondering if I had been too affectionate, too close. Questioned everything. But I also realized something else. I had changed too. I had started noticing him in ways I didn't want to admit. The way his jawline had sharpened. How his smile lit up a room. The way he carried himself like a man now. I hated myself for it. When he returned to college, the distance was a relief. We texted less. Phone calls became rare. I missed him, but I also felt like I had to let him go. Not just for his sake, but for mine. Then, a year later, I got a call from him. He said he'd graduated early and wanted to come see me. I agreed, but I was nervous. I didn't know what to expect. When he arrived, he looked even more grown up. He had a beard now, and he carried himself like someone who had faced the world and come out stronger. We had dinner, catching up like old times. It almost felt normal again. But when I walked into the kitchen to grab dessert, he followed me. And when I turned around, he kissed me. It was soft at first, hesitant. I should have pulled away, but I didn't. I let it happen, for a second too long, before I came to my senses and stepped back. "No," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "We can't." His eyes were filled with pain. "I still love you." I wiped a tear from my cheek. "Then love me enough to walk away." He did. He packed his things that night and left without another word. It's been 3 years since that night. We haven't spoken since. I hear from mutual friends that he's living on the West Coast now, working for a publishing company. I'm happy for him, truly. And I know he's moved on. Maybe even fallen in love with someone else. As for me, I've made peace with what happened. I still love him with all my heart. But I love him as a mother should. That line between us was blurred for a moment, but I've never crossed it again. I never will. Because love, the real kind, sometimes means letting go, even when your heart aches every day. And even now, when the house is quiet and I sit alone on the porch, I think about that boy I raised. That man I helped shape. And I hope he knows that no matter what happened between us, I brought him up as my own, and I will always love him. But some love stories are meant to stay unspoken, no matter how deep they go.